Hello everybody, how you doing today? Welcome back to the channel. Today's today's drawing is Zoro from One Piece. Instead of just doing another time lapse, I want to walk you through how I approached the sketch and explain some of the decisions I made while drawing it. Hopefully you'll be able to take something from this and use it in your own artwork, as per usual. So the first thing I always establish is the gesture before worrying about the muscles or the clothing. Want to know exactly how the body is moving, even with a powerful character like Zoro. The pose needs to feel natural. If the gesture isn't convincing, adding details later won't fix it. Obviously, details will just help amplify it, if anything. And obviously, as you see, the skeleton comes first, which is there's the shade from my hand in front of whatever light source was over the paper, so you can't really see that, but or maybe you can. And that's like, even though it's a stick figure with balls for joints, and then the overall idea of where the musculature would be at all, not trying to actually draw but the overall size and idea of where it would be, right? In, for each limb and each part of the body. That's just the baseline of just placing the body and how it's standing or how it's dynamically placed, right? And then gesture coming off of that when I finally draw it, and that body and everything on the body is like rooted into that skeleton. I'm just trying to build it up from there, right? AKA the gesture or the body language or stance, or any word that you could use to explain that. Now, um, okay, first thing is that the gesture, not before worrying about muscles or clothing. Did say that even with powerful characters, I just said. So once the gesture is in place, I start building the body with simple forms. Instead of drawing muscles individually, I think about larger shapes first, aka structure before details, which will keep repeating forever. Um, okay. The rib cage, pelvis, shoulders, and arms all become basic volumes that I can adjust before committing to the final lines, aka drawing every. It might not look like everything's lighter. The aim is to draw everything much lighter before doing a darker. And the funny thing is, I'm not even keeping in mind that I'm going to do a darker line later on. I'm just drawing it lightly, knowing that, oh yeah, I'm trying to intentionally, based on the reference I'm looking at, uh, trying to intentionally get this line correct or place it where it should be placed. Also, aligning where it's going to be placed with the anatomy that the stick figure, um, which has now had some things placed on it because I'm now starting to draw the stuff on the character after the stick figure, but in relation to whatever is already there, like, and here's the thing, the way I even explained this in prior videos, this isn't pen, so what happens is, trying to minimize mistakes. I was having a lot of proportion issues when I got back into art recently, a few months ago, and rebuilding back up the learning curve. That was mostly what was going on to where it left off last time, and then just building from there. And what happens is I was messing up the head proportions and just different things, and even, I'm doing things on the first take now. So the first time I draw it, I'm getting it correct. I'm doing it in pen, being silly, but it's also forcing me to have to pay attention and make sure that I'm doing this correctly. Because if it comes out way too out of proportion, I just won't post that and literally redraw it. And it doesn't matter if it took me a few hours, but now that's a few hours that I could have gotten it out on the first try or had a way better chance of that if I paid attention to proportions, right? So I pay attention to proportions by just branching out slowly from one area. So it's like, oh, I could draw the head, but I wouldn't just start drawing the feet. Now you could do that. It's fine. As a matter of fact, you might even want to put a marker that would show the top of the character you're drawing in the bottom. Some people literally do that. However they do that, and or you can literally do whatever you want, especially if you have a pencil and you can erase, right? But because I'm doing it in pen and I gotta get it done as perfectly as possible on the first try, um, so I'll usually start with the air. Nobody has to do that. You can start anywhere. Then I'll build out into the rest of the face from the air. So I'll build out into the temple and the side of the forehead and like the hair around the ear and their sideburn and their chin, excuse me, their jaw into their jaw angle and chin, and just build across from there. So now getting into the eyebrows, the eyes, the nose, mouth, all. And what happens is I'm inching out slowly, starting with structure, not really doing detail yet. But if I see, for example, there's details that are aligned with other parts of the structure in a proportional way, I'll start building up some of those details as well. So those details are helping me. So I can draw structure, but in structure can help me figure out proportions of anything around it. Like, the chin was aligned with the neck a certain way, and then, but there's also like details. So the chin could be aligned with the neck, but there was also neck musculature that was aligned with like some of the angles of the chin and some of the jawline, and I have to make sure that that neck musculature lines up with like the rest of the jaw completely as much as possible based on the reference I'm looking at, or if I already just know what the character looks like. Maybe I'm just aware where certain things need to be in general to actually have the character look relevant. So blah blah blah. Branching out to further structure and even details at times. Um, and then obviously all the details would just be added in towards the end, but like there's some details already being brought out to help me figure out proportioning while I'm actually drawing it, and slowly building up from there into everything else, right? Let me just get back to where I was. Uh, so I just say the first thing I always establish is gesture before worrying about muscles or clothing. I want to know exactly how the body is moving. Even I did say this all that already. So once the gesture is in place, I start building the body with simple forms instead of drawing muscles individually. I draw larger shape first, and it's not even really a shape. Like when I'm still in the stick figure form, it's really a shape. After that, I actually just go right into like exactly how the outer lines of everything would work, and then obviously details. So I'm not doing like a shape for the shoulders. I already did the balls for joints where the shoulder would be, and then there's a stick figure, obviously, right? And you can see exactly how the stick figure's anatomy is, even though there's no details that come with that. But then I'm actually drawing the shoulder over it the way it should look first time. You now that if someone wanted to do shape even before that to help them place it properly, that's a good idea as well. If it literally a shape could help. If you just need an idea. So even when you go to draw it afterwards, like there's just more awareness of where you're gonna place something. Because you can actually see it. You're actually looking at exactly whatever guideline you left for yourself. I just only leave the skeleton and the overall idea of the musculature, but shapes help as well. There's even a thing called like studies where people practice drawing the shapes of a character that make up a character with cylinders, and the same type of thing with where I use the balls for joints, but I use the stick figure. They use actual cylinders that make up the character. So look up character studies on YouTube and how to do character studies. They'll teach you that. That's a different way to actually practice all the stuff that I'm talking about from a different angle, but it still improves your art, right? One thing, okay. First thing I establish is gesture. I did say all that. Now, gesture, if the gesture isn't convincing, adding details later won't fix it. It's once the gesture is in place, I start building up the body. So before I already said this, okay. This saves a lot of frustration later. So like when I say that, um, The rib. So I said the rib cage, pelvis, shoulders, and arms all become basic volumes that I can adjust before committing to the final lines. And this saves a lot of frustration later on, or just oh man, I did this in pen, I got to reset. Well, maybe you didn't, but you could have maybe already been finished with the piece. Instead of having to go correct, but it's okay. As you grow in skill from all the practice, these are things that it just wouldn't really happen anymore, right? Zoro's expression is one of the most recognizable parts of the design of his design. I wanted him to look focused and intense, so I kept checking the eye placement and jawline throughout the sketch. Small adjustments to the eyes can completely change the mood of the drawing. Now, for the swords were probably the most challenging part of the drawing because they're overlapping with each other and crossing in front of the body. Perspective becomes very important. I tried to make sure each sword reinforced the composition instead of distracting from it. One thing I did was I could have maybe done a much better job with like how the swords were lined up. Or excuse me, I should say like the actual like how straight the line is or how the curve was. So that could have looked correct, but like that wasn't as in accordance to the reference as I would have liked it to be. So I could have. That's something I know I could have done better with knowing what the reference looks like and how I was trying to get it more accurate to that. Now, once everything looks balanced, I started committing to darker lines. This is where focus. Excuse me. This is where I focus less on fixing anatomy and more on making the drawing readable. Good line weight helps direct the viewer's attention exactly where you want it. Obviously, like they just would know where everything is, especially if you're not shading it. Like I'm not shading it. Line like for example, outer lines being darker or lines that are darker because that's exactly how it looks on the reference, and then that would also separate the different parts of the body or clothing articles. That it just allows people to instantly see what it is you're drawing, whether that's a character that they know or not. Like if people know the character, they could just tell. But if they don't even know the characters, they can easily identify exactly what they're looking at, as in like how they look, even if they don't know. Or excuse me, they'll know how the character looks when they're looking at it without having to know how they're supposed to look, right? Especially if you don't have shading or things helping clarify what a person is looking at, right? How else can you clarify it? And proportions, obviously, doing its part with that as well. And then just overall, like, accuracy of you portraying the character, which you just build over time. Um, Overall, I'm really happy with how the Zoro sketch turned out. If you enjoyed this breakdown, let me know which anime character you would like to see next. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Also, so that's just the end of my script. One thing I will say real quick is I don't know anything about Zoro, so I can't. And I said I'd talk about this in one of the short forms. I don't know anything about this character because I haven't watched barely any of One Piece. And I spoke on the parts I'd watched in prior videos where I drew Luffy and prior video where I drawn Zoro. So I can't explain why his personality is a. I can't explain anything about his personality and how that would have been portrayed in his appearance, and also this show is more about characters' body language, and or you could say like their body language combined with like the things that they say, their voice tonality, their actual decisions, or if they face a scenario, what would they choose to do? That's more where their personality comes from. So there would probably be more in his body language, but I don't know that, so I can't speak on that for this video. But if anything, I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in the next video.